Back at WN, turning it around and getting out to Cincinnati for the chili. Luke Jones and I will be broadcasting from Cincinnati, and certainly in the aftermath of Thursday night's game where both teams hoping to be 2-0 before bedtime and before the storm comes. Joe K is in Cincinnati there on the river banks, and he's down there eating the barbecue and waiting on the chili and waiting on Thursday night football, and much like the rest of us has watched a lot of bad baseball lately. But Joe K has not seen anything as bad as the Baltimore Orioles. You can follow his work up at WNST.net on the AP side of things out of Cincinnati, as well as at OAP Joe K out on Twitter. How are things in Cincinnati, man? We're hoping for the wind and the water to stay away, at least to get the game in here, but two pretty decent football teams. I think this game's going to have real impact on the season before it's all over with.
I think it will as well. The Bengals seem to be better than they were last year. They totally revamped their offensive line. They redid the offense. And so they have looked much better. You remember, of course, last year the Ravens came into town here in the opener and shut them out for the first time in franchise history. They were blanked in an opener. So Andy Dalton threw 4 interceptions, and they lost their first 3 games, and pretty much their season was a wash at that point. So this year their offense looks much better. They've got a lot of younger guys on defense, and they pulled one out in Indianapolis with the help of a late turnover. So they're feeling a lot better.
Well, I would say this for Andy Dalton, and he's a better quarterback when he has an offensive line. The same thing could be said for Flacco, the running game. I did watch a lot of the Bengals game. I mean, when I put the game on, they were down a couple touchdowns, right? And it looked like even at the end, Andrew Luck was going to go down there and find a way to beat them at the end before the miraculous play kind of happened that ended the game straight away. But the Bengals were sloppy for the most part, but I was really impressed by what I saw because I saw the good part of it, right?
Right. What really stood out was that their offense has been redesigned. There's only one holdover from the offensive line, and you nailed it. That was by far their biggest problem last year. They couldn't open holes for the running game. Andy was under constant pressure, finished last in the league in offense last year, first time in franchise history. So they totally redid the line. It is better. Andy had a lot more time, and he's sort of a rhythm passer with the West Coast offense. You give him some time, he gets into a flow. They can move the ball, and then every once in a while he'll hit A.J. Green on the deep ball. But clearly the new offense, Joe Mixon, the running back they drafted in the second round last year, is a center point of this. Their first 3 possessions, he touched the ball on half of the plays. Had 17 carries. He was their second leading receiver. So they have really redesigned the offense to a large degree around him, and it seems to suit Andy so far. So as long as the line gives him some time, it looks like offensively they will be different and better than they were last year.
Well, in the case of the offense, and seeing the Mixons and the Rosses, these guys, and I mean, no one was more talked about before, during, and after the draft than Mixon, and finding a place for him on the field where he's going to be a star player and make it all worth it. Certainly carrying the ball and taking the load off the offense, and allowing Dalton to maybe try to exploit mismatches, which he's going to get most weeks with A.J. Green out on the field, right?
Absolutely. And Tyler Boyd has also stepped up in training camp. They thought he was going to go into the slot, and he struggled at first, but he has the light bulb's kind of gone on for him a little bit. So they have a little bit better of a mix on offense, but you nailed it at the outset. If Andy Dalton has time, he's one of those quarterbacks that is a real rhythm passer. And once he gets into a rhythm, the offense just flows. If you put pressure on him, if you make him run outside the pocket and try to create plays, that is not his strength. And so if you can do that, then it plays into your hands.
Joe K covers all things Cincinnati sports for the Associated Press. You can find him at AP Joe K out on Twitter, as well as at WNST.net, where a lot of Reds and occasionally some Bearcat stuff, and certainly some Bengal stuff will be popping up. He'll be in the press box with us on Thursday night eating chili. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at the Modell Lyric. Check out the website there at modell-lyric.com. John Cusack in this week for a screening of Say Anything. Also Steely Dan and Kansas coming up. There's magic at the Modell Lyric. Also, Sporticulture, where I have these beautiful Raven flowers on our YouTube and Facebook Live. You can get those at Sporticulture. That's Sport Eye Culture. Local company, but they send them anywhere and everywhere. Officially licensed NFL floral arrangements to make your home, and it smells beautiful in here. Go check out Sporticulture. I'm going to get Cord on the program, too. He loves sports, too. Joe, for me with the Ravens in this year in the offseason, I think this is a fascinating matchup, and I didn't really think about it as such as I was paring down the schedule in April to put the W's and the L's next to games. But certainly both of these franchises spent the offseason kind of quietly in the corner, licking the wounds of not being any good and the Ravens being embarrassed by the ball going over their head and the Bills getting in. But it feels like both of these franchises, whether it was Marvin sticking around and it appeared that he wasn't going to stick around, for Flacco getting, having this draft situation with Lamar Jackson and all the national media piling up on him, it certainly feels like they've come out of this thing pretty well here as we enter week 2 in a lot of respects.
Yeah, certainly on the Bengals standpoint, when they decided to give Marvin a 2-year contract extension after 2 straight losing seasons, you saw the fan base was very upset with that. There was a feeling of kind of more of the same. But then they changed the defensive coordinator. They changed 6 coaches. So there's been change within the coaching staff, if not from the top, and they overhauled the offensive line. So there has been some change. I think in Cincinnati, fans are taking very much a wait-and-see approach. And certainly the win over the Colts was nice for them. But as you mentioned, Andrew Luck was leading them on what could have been a game-winning drive at the very end, threw for over 300 yards. But the strip and the return turned everything around. The Ravens clearly will be a far, far tougher test for them than that young Colts team was. So actually Thursday night, I think we'll get a better feel for where the Bengals stand, and maybe also for the Ravens, because Buffalo is also a struggling team.
Well, we're all familiar with the Dunlops and the Kirkpatricks and the names that have been there forever on the defensive side. But Burfict not being in there and having linebackers trying to fly around and figure it out, that's an important part of what they've done. They've always been so stout up front, always so stout stopping a run. But part of this, much like Jimmy Smith not playing on our side out there against A.J. Green, part of it is, Burfict's not around a whole bunch either. Le'Veon Bell's not around. I mean, that's part of the issue. Some of these star players aren't around, that it's not even injury-related.
Right, that's correct. And like with the Bengals standpoint, they went out, they signed Preston Brown in the offseason to sort of fill in that spot and give them something at linebacker that will be helpful to them. Now, Brown hurt his ankle in the game, and so we're not sure if he'll play. They think he will, but he's been sort of filling in for Burfict. For them, it's more their young guys have started to really emerge. You've still got Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins and Michael Johnson, but guys like Andrew Billings and Jordan Willis, Sam Hubbard from Ohio State played a bigger role. These younger guys are being worked in more and more in their rotation on the line. And so that is what's one of the encouraging things for them. Now, they're going to go through some growing pains with these guys yet, and they know that. So, but they're very deep, if young, on the defensive side of the ball.
Hey, Joe, you're just like me, man. You sit there and the game starts and you look up and down the rosters and you're like, the Bengals were the one team the last few years I knew all their, when I would see a number, I'd know who it is, right? And sometimes there's even a hair hanging out of the helmets on the D-line as well with Pekka. But I would say this, for me with the Bengals, I'm going to need a scorecard on Thursday. I've looked at some of the names and the numbers and who's there, and I remember the drafts and all of that, but it feels like there's different flow, and I definitely had my mobile device out trying to figure out who was who in the game because there were guys making plays. I mean, the kid that made the biggest play of the game, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, right?
Yes, Fedulum. Right, exactly. A lot of people do not. In the last 2 years, on defense particularly, they have gone very young. Their defense had slowed down. It was very clear they had lost a step, and so they just went and got rid of a lot of veterans and brought in a whole lot of young guys, went through some growing pain last year. This year they have a rookie starting at safety in Jesse Bates. Fedulum's a young guy. They're very kind of young in the safety spot. But they got young guys that they're working in their line rotation. And their theory is that they will be fresh in the fourth quarter, so they limit everybody's snaps. And the young guys have been starting to come on. So that is kind of what they've hung their hat on. These young guys are going to emerge over this year, and they're going to give them some advantage in the fourth quarter by not playing just the same number of guys in all their snaps.
I saw this Fedulum guy running with the ball, and I'm like, man, that was a pretty key spot in the game, and who the hell's 42, and where did he come from? And, and that's good, right? I mean, it would be good if you discover who Tim Williams is on Thursday night or some of these young guys for the Ravens that maybe we're unfamiliar with. Or, I mean, I saw one of our Nick Boyle grabbed the ball and ran through the middle, and people in my section were yelling, he, because he was wearing 86. And I guess that's where we are this time of the year. Joe K joining us here. He is AP Joe K. AP Joe K, and he's okay as well out at Cincinnati with the Associated Press and getting ready for Thursday night's game. I haven't had you on since last year, and maybe when the ball went over our heads and it cost us the postseason. But the Marvin thing, and you know how close I am with Marvin. I think we thought it was the end. He thought it was the end. Now he's back. Are you shocked he's back? I mean, I got to think most people really, really were inside and outside Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, I was really surprised, and it was pretty clear that Marvin clearly was not sure he was coming back. Toward the end of the year, if you'd ask him, are you going to be back? If they offered you the job, would you be back? And his response would be like, sure. But it was not a very emphatic, yes, I want to be back. I think he's always had some disagreements with management over how things are done. They've worked those things out over the years. He wanted to sit down and have another discussion with that. After they just were getting blown out near the end of the year and just looking bad, everyone assumed, attendance was way down. They didn't even come close to drawing a capacity crowd last year. The final home game, it was like half full, which was another indication.
By the way, that's a league issue, too. We had that issue here now, all of a sudden. After this thing was purple and full, and that's America right now, I guess.
Right. And usually what happens is when it gets to that point, you change the head coach, and then you kind of peg your hat on that and just go, okay, we're going to start selling tickets. New day, new coach, turnaround. Mike Brown, he's just so different. He does not like change. They won their last 2 games, including the win at Baltimore. And Mike said, well, we played well, so we're going to bring him back for 2 years. So he's got a 16th chance now, which is unheard of. Bill Belichick's the only guy with more tenure, and he's got 5 Super Bowls. So, yeah, there was a big surprise in the city that he was brought back, and he's got 2 years. So, it's kind of more of the same from the top while they're trying to make changes within the coaching staff and within the roster to change things around.
What are your expectations for them? I mean, we all want to pump the brakes, especially when we win 47-3, right? Or when you go on the road and beat Andrew Luck and come back from a couple touchdowns down. Or if you're the Jets. Or if you're Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there was a lot of spectacular in week 1. Everybody that won feels really good about themselves. But I do feel like the division itself, having sat and watched a half of football, whether it was the Browns and the Steelers and the fourth quarter of that and your game as well, it feels very, very much like all of these teams are good to pretty good, and the Browns are better than certainly 0-16. Maybe they're not good, but they're not awful anymore, and they might win 5-6 games. You better figure out that you're not one of them. They've already stung the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1, right?
Yeah, the Browns defense is really good. They have stocked up on all those draft picks. Of course, their big problem has been quarterback. Through that common thread through all of these years, not being able to settle on quarterback. And so you've got the same unsettled situation up there at quarterback with the next top pick waiting in the wings, and where do you move them in? But their defense is really good. So, yeah, I could see them winning a number of games this year just based on their defense.
And then to the Reds, Joe K.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We're going to lose 120 games, right? Well, so it's a whole different level of awful. And I did look to say, well, where are the Reds? How bad are they? Because I've talked to all you guys this week about how bad they are. They're really bad, but they're still 20 games better than us. It's crazy.
Watching what the Orioles are doing is just mind-boggling. There's bad, and then there is just historically bad. The Reds are really interesting. They're caught in that rebuilding thing. And if you look at Philadelphia, they decided we've developed enough that if we go out and get some pitching, we can contend, and they're contending. The Reds are at the point where I think their everyday lineup is good enough to contend. Their bullpen is now good enough to contend because they got 2 veterans in the offseason, but they do not have the starting pitching. Homer Bailey is, his arm is probably shot, and they got Matt Harvey, but he's a free agent. And then they've got Anthony DeSclafani, and that's pretty much it. A bunch of young guys after that. So if they go out and they get a couple veteran pitchers in the offseason, they could be like a Philadelphia, I think. But are they willing to go out and spend that money? So that's the interesting decision with them. What are they going to do in terms of their starting rotation? Because the rest of the team is actually pretty good.
Well, and the Cardinals and the Cubs are the big bad wolves, right? I mean, we have the Red
Right.
Sox and the Yankees, which is a whole different level of thing here. But certainly trying to rebuild it back up and get people to come out to the ballpark and buy into players and do all of that in a smaller market. I'm really worried in Baltimore that none of those Washington people are coming back. In Cincinnati with the Reds, I mean, there's enough money out there to sort of support it, but never to the level where they're going to spend like the Cubs do, right?
Right, exactly. And part of their problem is that they spent very poorly. Homer Bailey got a $105 million contract, and they still have a year left, and they owe him $28 million next year. And then, of course, Joey Votto's got still a long-term deal, $25 million a year. So those two guys alone are going to make around $50 million-ish next year, and their total payroll was $100 million on opening day. So when you've got half your payroll tied up in two guys,
dude, the Homer Bailey thing's unbelievable, right? Like that's the Chris Davis of our world, right?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. When they gave him the contract, he had the two no-hitters, but he was basically a 500 career pitcher, and they really struggled to come up with the money to do that for him. And, pitching is a crapshoot in some ways. If the guy gets hurt, what do you do? And he's had 3 arm operations since he got the contract. So, yeah, he's not even pitching for them now. They basically told him just go throw in the bullpen for the rest of the year.
Yeah, man, we've had Dylan Bundy around here and his promise, and look, they never gave him $100 million or whatever, and certainly for the Reds, the Cuetos and the Arroyos, and it's just long gone. I mean, it's dried up. Right. Nick Markakis ain't coming back. Manny Machado ain't coming back, right? Like, neither's Pete Rose or Johnny Bench on your end, right?
Right, exactly. So these guys are in the position where they were hoping their young pitchers last year and this year would develop, and they haven't. They're still very erratic and up and down. So do you go out and in the free agent market get a veteran pitcher who is past his prime, so he's more affordable, get a couple of those guys and bring them in, which is still going to cost you some money? Or do you just try to roll the dice again and hope that the young guys will finally emerge? So that's their big question. What do you do with the starting pitching, and do you spend money there?
Well, at least you got Suarez, right? Yeah, worth going to see, right?
He's having a heck of a season. He has really improved so much from last year and the year before. Their starting offense, their starting everyday lineup is really pretty good. Tucker Barnhart won the Gold Glove, Joey Votto at first, Scooter Gennett having an incredible, year and a half at second base. Peraza at short is emerging, Suarez at third. So you got Billy Hamilton running balls down in the outfield. So their everyday lineup is actually pretty good.
Well, God bless you for getting out there to the Great American Ballpark and having one of those conies with the cheese piled up bigger than a hot dog. I'll be up in the press box on Thursday night chomping down that chili. I'm bringing Luke with me, so it's his first time having the chili with the cinnamon and the chocolate and all that nonsense, the runny chili. So we'll be out in Cincinnati. Pretty good football game, and we'll see if the Storm holds off. It's always a shame when they play this on 3 days rest because certainly the Ravens have it tougher traveling, but the Ravens rested a lot of their guys in the second half. I mean, if you're going to have a 47-3 blowout, week 1's a good one to have it when you got to go to Cincinnati and play in 4 days. So maybe that levels the playing field a little bit for my expectations on Thursday.
That might, because the Bengals really clearly had to play all their guys as much as they could. So, yeah, and the veterans talk about this a lot, that when you are coming off a game, it takes you like 3-4 days just to start feeling physically pretty good again because you just get so beat up. And then to have to play that game on Thursday night, and there's no preparation. I mean, there's not no preparation, but there's very little preparation because you're just rushing through it, trying to figure out what this team is doing. And early in the season, the Bengals have a new offense. The Ravens are doing some new things. They have some new receivers. So there's a lot of studying that goes into it, and you're just not as prepared as you are for a normal game. Physically, you're just not there yet, and that's why so many of these Thursday night games can be just very ugly all around, just because of the condition of the players and the preparation.
And that's before they put on uniforms that like ketchup and mustard and relish.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you never really know what to expect with these Thursday night games.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you on Thursday night. Keep the chili warm in the little roaster there for us, and we'll get down there, watch some football, and have a weekend where I can red zone it on a Sunday. One of the benefits of the Orioles stinking like this is, well, there's not much else to watch in September, so I'm actually getting some work done, Joe. So I'm all about it, and some college football as well. Always a pleasure to have you on, man. Thanks for making some time for us.
Always a pleasure. Yes, hope you have a good trip. Looking forward to seeing you.
You got it. Joe Kay from the Associated Press joining us here from Cincinnati, Ohio. You can find him out at AP Joe Kay, as well as at WNST.net, where a lot of his work appears on the backside of our website. on our stats package. You can find me out on the buy at Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. If you see Victor Brick or Lynn Brick, let them know you heard about the John W. Brick Foundation events we have going on in October for my 50th birthday, October 13th and 14th. The Wim Hof methods, the Iceman cometh to Baltimore that weekend for my 50th birthday as well. You can learn more at jwb5k.com. It's up at Timonium at the racetrack. Speaking of racetracks, our friends at Laurel sponsor us as well in our morning newspaper, as well as the front of our website at WNST.net. Always get your entries out there. The DeFrancis Dash moved to next weekend because of the hurricane this weekend. And, of course, the Maryland Million coming up on October 20th. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday getting you ready for Ravens football. Thursday night football. That's Monday night football. Sorry about that. 3 to 5, it is the SSV on WNST. Dennis Colatzos here. I'll be checking in. Luke will be checking in. We are in Cincinnati, Ohio. May take Luke over to Kentucky. If he uses the bathroom and goes to the chili joint over there, he could say he's visited another state. I'm going to bring that up with him. Don't think I won't either, because I'm funny like that. I'm up to 46 states. I'm working on 47. I got to get to North Dakota. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.